The Catheters are quite possibly your even newer favorite band, and that's no piss take. So, lyrics. I think it just dawned on me that's no piss take and it's the Catheters. It just hit me. Now that guy earned his paycheck.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of That's Audiophiles. My name's John. His name is Andy. When I went for a job, I had to trade in my hair and think of ideas in a Parker Knoll chair. More on that later, but first we have a track to listen to today. Andy, what have you got in store?
I have an act called The Catheters. And
Are you taking the piss? No, they are.
and a track by them called Nothing. So I assume, judging by your reaction when I said their name, this is not a band you've heard of before, the Catheters, right? Fair, fair. Okay, well, then you're flying blind, so go off, do just that, be careful. And then come back and let us all know what you made of Nothing by the Catheters.
Will do. Excellent start. You got that sort of croaky bass, and then old fashioned, yeah. And then we come. So you got like the bass sound of this, bass level sound of this. Sorry, is this kind of almost grungy, post grungy, distorted guitars chomping away, smacking the shit drums with that bass as well. It all sounds good. But then this channel here, you got this almost British sounding post punky sort of guitar that's not quite, but slightly angular, but it's a bit different. Certainly something like that you would necessarily hear on any Mudhoney song. It's really cool. And then as the singer actually starts to sing, that sort of dissipates and you get this more rhythmic, choppy sort of riffage going on, which is great as well. He's got a great voice. Initially, it made me think of Mark Arm quite a bit, which is no bad thing. And there was a line where he said, I want to crawl inside vibrations or something that slip into my mind. That almost sounded like Stooges, the way he put it. Really cool. It's a lovely sound. Really full of energy and attack. And sounds totally committed. Yeah, sounds good. I'll just whiz back a bit on this. I'm struggling with some of the words, but then again, first listen, I don't think I'm going to get that much. I wanna crawl inside these vibrations, slipping into my mind. Rock me to sleep, or just out dreams is better on my bedroom. Or when I feel like shit, nothing comes like this. Nothing fits like this. Nothing feels as perfect. When I feel like shit, nothing goes like this. Nothing fits like this. Gonna stop there. I'm sorry. It's just that, yeah, I can hear what he's saying. This bit is, I presume this is the chorus when they're saying nothing, nothing, but it's almost counterintuitively dropped the energy level slightly. when he feels like shit. Nothing cures like this. Nothing fits like this. Nothing feels as perfect. I think he said. Um, yeah, and as he's just doing that, and then I think we were going around again. That previous post-punky second guitar sound is now in this channel. It's slightly fainter and a little bit. It's not quite as clear and present as that one. I keep getting these sort of almost like Buzzcocks type sort of sound to it. It just reminds me of that, and I can't think of which particular song. It's just I keep getting the feeling of Buzzcocks in that ear when I hear it, which is cool. Let's go back a wee bit. It's such a short song. Really enjoy that. There's a lot of noise making going on, which is usually a good thing. Um, yeah, loads of energy and attitude, and attack. Um, I wasn't overly keen on that sort of bridgy part, but that's a personal, you know, dislike of mine, and I think you know I would necessarily say it makes it a bad song. But yeah, I said, yeah, I just really like the way sort of they sort of attacked it and had the different sort of blends. So there was a grungy, post-grungy sound, whatever you want to call it, to it. There's definitely a bit of the old Seattle sound there, and then a bit of this sort of post-punky, and then almost like a classic rock sort of riffage going on, and particularly that sort of. So I think they repeated one of the verses before because I had that sort of chord side vibrations line again. And then back into the chorus, which is like heavier than before. I didn't drop it down so much, and it worked really well. And those sort of pulsing almost like sonar, blip 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 blips, are really pleasing as well. And then they came out of it, and again, it was more of that sort of almost like a classic rock sort of guitar, um, solo-ish cameo. It's 20, 30 seconds, you know. This sounded great. You could argue this is a really short song, but you could argue as well they got in and out before you got a chance to get bored and leave you wanting more, which is a really good sign. So yeah, this was a great song. I'm guessing there's some sort of existential turmoil going on there. It could be anything. How he sees his place within his world, his town, his street. I don't know. But I'm thinking that nothing feels like this. I think that this bit, as he repeats through it, must be this act here of getting together with his mates and making a load of noise and snarling at people. That sort of cathartic exercise, which I'm sure gives them great comfort. Um, and seeing other people freak out or being uncomfortable with the noise or connecting, which would be better. So yeah, this was great. I loved it. I need to find out a bit more about the catheters. So to do that, I'm gonna go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right, so you are back. John, tell us all what your thoughts are.
Okay, so this opens with a throaty burble from the bass before we get an exuberant yeah that Ian Astbury of the cult would be proud of. And that punches the clock and the band kicks in. So we get a sort of meat and potatoes distorted guitar, bass, and drums straight from the Seattle menu. But then on top, there's almost this British sounding guitar um, with more post punk leanings, which is kind of lighting up the left channel. Um, as the singer begins, that guitar changed to this rhythmic riff um, to sort of better sort of carry the melody along, and the vocals as he starts to sing. After a few lines, it really starts to remind me a bit of Mark Arm, which is no bad thing. And then there's a line in the a few lines in. It says something about I want to crawl inside these vibrations, which really sounds like a Stooges line to me. And then maybe there's a little bit of really young Iggy Pop in there as well. So this is firmly sort of garage rock with loads of attitude and energy, but rather than a sort of fuzzy electric ball of layered sound that you get from grunge or post grunge. This is more jagged and sawtoothed approach, which I really like. We get to what I presume is a chorus, and counterintuitively, the energy and the intensity actually drops a level. Not through the floor, but just down a bit. And he sings something about when I feel like shit, there's nothing cures like this, nothing fits like this, nothing feels perfect. And with the nothing repeated by, I guess, another band member at the end of each line.
Mm.
Um, you wouldn't say it's call and response. It's more sort of like we're doing a gig in the cellar of a pub kind of sound, which is great as well. I know it has that sort of immediacy to it. So once again, we have this contrast between nihilistic lyrics and an energetic, up-tempo delivery, which we've talked about ad infinitum on this channel. So yeah, I'm guessing that this, when nothing cures like this, nothing fits like this, this is the act of howling away with his bandmates in some sort of cathartic jumble of noise making, and why the hell not? For the first round of these lines, there's also a pleasant, almost sonar like bleeping from one of the guitars, beep 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 beep, which I really that's one of the things I always like. And as we go round again, because it recycles those lines again, that previous post-punky guitar riff starts appearing in the right-hand channel, but it's slightly diminished as well, and there's a slight filter on it. It doesn't feel as angular, and it feels definitely quieter in the mix. And it kind of noodles away before we exit back to some more rhythmic strums. And then back comes the aforementioned Anglia post-punk riff in the left channel again, restored in clarity in its original location. And it acts as a kind of road marker on a motorway indicating the next turn or verse is very shortly ahead. I guess some snatches of phrases here because the singer's really starting to hit his stride now. So he's given it some, as they say, snarling away, which makes this sort of, comprehension there become more and more diminished for me, especially. But yeah, talking about his new home, and I think it's filthy shades of blue. Could be 50, but I'm sure it's filthy. And talking about I want to connect as well. And then he snarls at the end of the line. There's an elongated for you, and we hit what I like to call the dreaded bridge section. With it goes into some really almost heavy classic rock riffage. There's like a one, two, three, four, and then nothing. Um, Not the most successful part of the song for me. Doesn't diminish from my enjoyment overall of the song, but that second guitar welcomely arrives back and brings us back into the room with a quick drum fill and into another brief verse. I hear that cruel vibrations line again, so I think this is a recycled from that second verse or whatever it was, or first verse. The sonar bips kind of resonate again over another chorus, which then ends with even more sort of classic rock sonics for another 20, 30 seconds of a different tone again. Um, and toning along in its wake as more drum fills before it kind of circles the plug hole as it descends into finish. Um, you could argue that this song's a little bit short, but I kind of like the fact that it kind of leaves you wanting more. Has this punch to it. I really like the mixture and the sounds and the influences and the full-on energy. Um, I'm guessing from it, I'm really guessing here, but it sounded quite a youthful sort of lyrical bent. This sort of existential turmoil about, I don't know, his place in the world. I think it was something actually his place on the street or his place in his bloody bedroom, how they fit in. Well, it could be anything. And it's probably something that he won't give a shit about in 10 years' time. But it still had an overall sound and feel that I really enjoyed.
Excellent. I thought you would. You very rarely do you fail me when when it comes to picking up on what influenced a song, as in the predecessors of the genre. And you named Iggy, and you named Mud or Mark Arm. So I mean, you're there. You're definitely in the ballpark. So go on.
The other thing I forgot to write down, but I mentioned in the reaction is each time that sort of angular is a strong word, but it's kind of almost that sort of guitar in the left channel. I kept getting the word buzzcocks coming into my head each
Oh.
time I heard it, and I can't think which one. It's not the solo from Boredom, although it's not a million miles away from that. This is kind of two notes, sort of motif, but it kind of feels like something Buzzcoxy-ish in
Hmm.
a way, which again is really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, and it's great to hear you pick out bands that I know you like, having listened to this just in one go. So, yeah, the Catheters. They were an American. Now this says punk rock band. That's how they started. They definitely, spread their wings a little bit as far as other subgenres of rock. But yeah, they started off as a punk rock band from, and you were pretty spot on with this too, Bellevue, Washington. So Pacific Northwest, you are correct. Formed in 1995 as a four-piece with singer Brian Standiford, guitarist Derek Mason, bassist Paul Wald, and drummer James License, who would soon be replaced by Davey Borozowski of the band Damaged Goods. They originally played hardcore punk in the vein of bands such as Black Flag and the Circle Jerks. But in 1998, they added a second guitarist, Lars Swenson, and began cultivating a dirtier 70s glam rock sound as heard on their Empty Records releases. And there's a bit of garage in there as well, I would definitely say. Yeah, go on.
We've said this before as well, but it's kind of like a later version, but in the UK, punk, which I adore, but not everyone does, spawned post-punk and all this, explosion of new sounds and bands. And I think a step or two later, probably a bit later, like a good 10 years later, hardcore found its place in America. And then that became the go-to DIY for young guys picking up good instruments for the first time.
Yeah.
And then they would evolve into other things like the Beastie Boys or
Yeah.
whatever. It's
Yeah.
just really interesting how it mirrors it, but it's different as well. But that
Exactly.
progress is really cool.
Or post-hardcore, which is still an
Yeah,
offshoot of it, but very much not what the Beastie Boys would go on to do. So,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it is interesting to follow the sort of the vein work of it all and to see what splits and what it generates in the wake.
Yeah. So like, why I don't particularly enjoy hardcore, and Black Flag's not my thing at
Yeah,
all. But I really appreciate what it did to get these people going.
exactly, exactly. Couldn't agree more. The records sold fairly well and gained them the attention of larger labels such as DreamWorks and, you guessed it, Sub Pop, given the
Yeah,
geographic locale. The latter of whom signed the band to a recording contract in 1999. So here we are again. I've kind of left the emo thing because we've just done a few of those. Now I'm dipping back into some of these sub pop bands that kind of flew under the radar compared to the obvious ones that we've have discussed on the channel quite a bit. So over the course of their career, they did extensive road work, touring North America and Europe with bands such as Sparta, Mudhoney, Run Run Run, Division of Laura Lee, and often the Murder City Devils. Wad and Swenson left the band in 2001 for other projects, and the Catheters continued as a four-piece with the longtime roadie Leo Gebhardt joining as their new bassist. In 2002, with the help of a popular music video, they scored an indie hit with the song Nothing. And this was from their album Static Delusions and Stone Still Days, their first release on Sub Pop. And speaking of Sub Pop, this excerpt is from the band's artist page on the label's website, and it humored me. So I thought I would share the. When you go onto a record label and they're gassing up their artists with these little blurbs, it's somebody, drums up. This one just made me laugh when I came across it. The Catheters are a scourge on pretty boy rock and roll, a festering wound in the ear of all things delicate, a hot razor blade slashing through tight knots of control. This is the band you listen to when your girlfriend leaves you cold, when you get tired of your boss using your spine as a sidewalk, when you want to put a fist through a wall. You grew up on the Germs and the Pagans, took a left turn into Pear Ubu, Electric Eels, and Pussy Galore, and injected 60s garage psych like the Yardbirds, Blue Cheer, and love into your veins at a young age. The Catheters are your catharsis for a maniacal living. Somebody earned their
that's
paycheck on that one.
no. I would say the opposite. I would say that was written by an unpaid intern who went home and said, "Look what I wrote today, Mum."
Just- I agree. It's corny and cheesy and all that stuff, but
It's fun though.
yeah, at the time, this is the stuff they were pushing out to like resonate with angry young men. It's just oh my god, it's so funny. Um, the recording process for Static Delusions and Stone Still Days took place over the course of one massive, unbroken 36-hour session, which is incredible. But it also, you can almost hear it in this, how fast and loose and kind of dirty and not tidy in any way. Like this isn't that polished shit, that you can sometimes get with overproduced stuff. It all sounds like it was one take, which is, I actually think, kind of the charm, especially when it's
Yeah.
garagey and stuff like it fits. It makes sense. Upon its release, Brian Varney of Lollipop magazine reviewed the album and wrote, the press sheet tells me they're fresh out of high school, and though you'd never know it if you weren't told, it makes a whole lot of sense. This album is shaking to the rafters with small frustrations of everyday life. The stuff that fueled songs like Summertime Blues and Come On Everybody. Trembling with a rage exclusive to the hormone addled young man. And this is four of them, bud. So meaning it's like four of these hormone addled young men, adding it's the most sub pop sounding record to come out of Sub Pop in quite a long fucking while. Jim Alexander of the NME reviewed Static Delusions and Stone Still Days and offered up this on the album's sound and the band. The Catheters are clearly young men in a hurry, having chosen their name on the entirely reasonable grounds that it sounded punk. These Seattle noisenicks recorded and mixed their album in one grueling 36-hour session. It's a brilliantly simple ploy because banging out ideas in a furious high velocity, rough-edged whirlwind, this mixes the dirtiest punk with the seamiest grunge to fine effect. So tracks like Primal Hell, Clock on the Wall, or the melodic yet blasting single 3,000 Ways occasionally ape the Stooges, but are, crucially, superbly direct and unrelentingly raucous. Adding, with brilliant rock and roll groups coming out of the walls like blood in a horror movie, the Catheters are quite possibly your even newer favorite band, and that's no piss take. So, lyrics. I think it just dawned on me that's no piss take and it's the Catheters. It just hit me. Now that guy earned his paycheck. I bathe in the rays of yours, emanated from the back tone, falling over with a golden tongue, exercised in rotation. I want to crawl inside these vibrations, slip it into my mind, rock me asleep with desert dreams, split throughout my bedroom. When I feel like shit, nothing cures like this, nothing. Nothing fits like this, nothing. Nothing feels as perfect. When I feel like shit, nothing cures like this, nothing. Nothing fits like this, nothing. Nothing feels as perfect. I devil through a spiral pathway, headed for my new home. Same filthy shades of blue, of feeling that I'll never know. I want to connect. I want what you protect. I've gotten in too late. I can be any tempting friend for you. Nothing fits like this. Nothing feels as perfect. Nothing fits like this. Nothing feels as perfect. I bathe in the rays of yours emanating from a back tone, falling over with a golden tongue, exercised in rotation. I want to crawl inside these vibrations, slipping into my mind, rock me asleep with desert dreams, split throughout my bedroom. When I feel like shit, nothing cures like this, nothing. Nothing fits like this, nothing. Nothing feels as perfect. When I feel like shit, nothing cures like this, nothing. Nothing fits like this, nothing. Nothing feels as perfect. So overall, the track is a celebration of music's power to cure mental burnout, acting as a coping mechanism for maniacal high energy living. After releasing more singles and touring heavily in 2002 and 2003, the band released the acclaimed album Howling, It Grows and Grows in 2004, which infused their earlier sound with elements of classic rock. The Catheters played their final show on October 15th, 2004 at Seattle's Sunset Tavern, joined by friends The Vels and Black Belt, who played some old school Catheter covers, ending the show with a mass sing along to their song Fake ID, which degenerated into instrument destruction and a minor brawl. No surprises there. The band dissolved amicably, with Brian Standiford and Davey Borozowski forming the group Tall Birds, later joined by Leo Gebhardt, while Derek Mason went on to play keyboards in The Girls and bass in Sunday Night Blackout. After Tall Birds disbanded, Standiford started Idle Times with Borozowski. Pardon me, while Borozowski went on to form the band Black Whales. Borozowski also tours with the popular indie rock band Modest Mouse as their percussionist second drummer alongside Jeremiah Green. Idle Times has released two 7 inches, and Black Whales have an EP on Mount Fuji Records and a self released full length album as well. The Catheters reunited to play the Sub Pop Jubilee on June 2013. And that's all I could find as far as any reuniting that was done after their early 2000s breakup. So, yeah, interesting band. Wouldn't have mind if they had stayed around longer doing similar stuff to these two Sub Pop albums. They were really, really, really good stuff. If it was just a brief snippet in time that they were generating such materials. But yeah, I thought you would like them for obvious reasons. I mean, you almost instantly out of the gate mentioned the Stooges, and then Mudhoney, of course, obviously, which I know is one of your favorites from that area over here. So yeah, man, glad you enjoyed this one.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, like you said. I think I stopped seeking out or listening to stuff that had a sub pop label on it around sort of 96. It wasn't intentional, it just kind of happened, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, from about 89, 90 to that time, you know, I would always check out anything that had the sub pop attached to it. And I remember I used to go out into town, and I'd wear either a Sub Pop t-shirt or Sonic Youth t-shirt or an Acid Jazz t-shirt. And then every time I get someone coming to me saying, I can't believe you're wearing one of those t-shirts. I never see them around. But yeah, it was really cool. There was a guy we used to call Sub Pop Steve because he was really into the stuff, you
Yeah.
know. It's like records were part of your, you know, the labels were part of your identity and the identity of certain bands as well. Particularly Mudhoney, you know, they
Yeah.
would be my favourite sub pop artists, you know, without a doubt. Tad and others as well, but you know, Mudhoney's the one for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, if it's of any consolation, or if it makes you feel better, fashion is cyclical, and I have found myself eyeing a couple of the classic aesthetic Sub Pop
Yeah,
T-shirts that they've reissued because they're just so fucking cool, dude, and they
they
speak to such
are.
a
They
good
are.
time, like in niche rock and roll. And you're falling, I don't want to say falling out with, but you're just sort of stepping away from seeking their stuff out around that time makes sense and kind of aligns with what the
Yeah,
critic had said, where this is the best sub pop or the most sub pop sounding album to be released by them in quite some time. Because yeah, there was this time where they didn't know what direction to go, and maybe even the bands in the area didn't know how to pave new ground because everybody was just so caught up with the success, the lightning that they had caught in a bottle with the grunge movement. You know what I mean? So it was kind of lost for a little bit, but it's nice to see that it was around this time, like late 90s, early 2000s, they started to find some really interesting sounding indie rock bands. I mean, Mouse was alluded to in here as well, and they're sort of from, if I'm not mistaken, from the same neck of the woods too. So, you know, ebbs and flows. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm really glad you liked it. Like I said before, thank you so much for giving this a listen, John. I really appreciate your input. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track, Nothing by the Catheters. If there's other stuff by them or similar, maybe, smaller sub pop bands that only got one or two albums off the ground that we should check out, feel free to shout them out in the comments field below. If at least, one of us is not familiar with it, it will be featured on the channel in a future Friday episode. Also, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.